What are you drinking this morning?
I have to confess something. It was a large bag of coffee. I'm still drinking the same thing I was drinking 2 days ago.
I am drinking Taiwanese high-mounted oolong tea, which is absolutely fabulous. But it does you end up with leaves like this in your tea. So it's not really coffee, but it's actually surprisingly tasty.
It's coffee with Tom and Michael. It's not coffee or tea.
Sorry. Okay, I'll make sure I'm on coffee next time.
So today we're talking about an NRP, which of course is an acronym for the Nationally Representative Panel. And I think it's worth talking a little bit about where this came from.
We had a number of different customers come to us and say, look, I really like the Inscape dataset. Actually, we also have people talking about set-top box datasets with us as well. And they said, I really like this dataset, but I can see it's skewed and it's biased. I can't really use this to sell advertising unless I can be sure that this actually represents the nation. Yeah.
Right.
And so the first question is what are the skews and the biases on it? And yes, it's interesting. Set-top box data has obvious gaps geographically. Yeah. But it's quite representative in many areas. Yeah. Obviously, people who are poorer can't afford a cable subscription. Yeah. So you get that obvious bias.
What is an NRP exactly? What is that product, that service that we're making available, and why would someone need one?
Absolutely. So when I first started making nationally representative panels, it was back in the days when we were working purely with set-top box data. We were actually part of GfK, the market research data company, and what we were doing is we were working in countries where there was no currency, there was no panel, and we were making a pseudo panel out of set-top box data. And when you build a panel, what you do is you recruit a bunch of panelists, and you try to get it to be as representative of the market as you possibly can, and you don't always succeed. Where you don't succeed, you assign every panelist a weight. If, for example, you look at the Nielsen Emerald dataset, all minute respondent level data, for people who don't know that particular acronym, it's the granular Nielsen product. Every panelist has got a different weight for each day. And most of those weights are, close to 1, because they can recruit panelists. If there aren't enough African Americans in the Nielsen panel, they'll recruit some more African American homes. The situation that we have with set-top box data and with Inscape, with the smart TV data, is we've only got people who opted in. If we're short of Hispanic homes, then we can't recruit some more. We just have to upweight the ones that we've got. So what we're doing with Inscape is all of their TVs, we're going through and we're assigning each of those TVs a weight based on the demographic characteristics of that household with that TV, and we're comparing that with what is nationally represented.
Is the Inscape data particularly skewed when you start this process?
Generally, it's actually not that skewed at all. If you're looking at mass market programming and mass market advertising, it's pretty good. There are geographic skews. For example, Los Angeles is the biggest DMA in Inscape data, whereas New York is number 2. Whereas it should be the other way around. Yeah.
Right.
So there are some geographic biases, but there aren't geographical holes. There are also biases that you definitely see. So, for example, people over 75 are much less likely to have a connected Vizio smart TV. Yeah, I guess for the obvious reasons. It'd be really interesting to see how that changes over time. I think it's a combination of being less likely to be connected, being less likely to have a new TV, and being less likely to have a connected smart TV. You do get skews against very poor people. There's a whole area about people who have got less money are much less likely to have finished high school and are unfortunately much more likely to also be African American.
Right.
Who are underrepresented on the Inscape panel.
So how much of an improvement do we get with the NRP, and can you measure that?
It's twice as reliable if you weight it by demo. Yeah. So if we're looking at an R squared of about 0.8, that would probably increase to close to 0.9 when you've got NRP. Yeah. If you look at your kind of root mean squared error, you might have a 10% difference from other measures, and that might get out about 5%. It's a significant difference, and I think where it's really important is where you've got campaigns or you've got networks which have got demographic skews on them. Yeah. So some networks, for example, CBS definitely skews older. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
If you want effective ratings for CBS, you definitely want to be using NRP. If you're looking at ones that appear more to ethnic minorities, like for example Telemundo, VH1, Opera, then you definitely want to be using NRP. And overall, if you want something that you can reliably use to say, okay, this is the amount of people who are watching this show and this campaign, we would always recommend now using this kind of weighting. I mean, the downside is it's generally a pain to do, but we're taking that pain off people's back. We've got a couple of people whose job it is every week to make sure we've got reliable numbers for it.
Other companies have their versions of this typically integrated into a platform that they're providing. What is it that you think we're doing that's different, and why should end customers, networks, advertisers, agencies be particularly interested in the Dativa NRP?
Well, I mean, if they're doing their job properly, there shouldn't actually be much difference mathematically between what we're doing and what they're doing. But I guess the big difference is we're just being much more transparent about it. I guess if you've got someone who is pitching together a big attribution solution, and they've got buried in the bottom of that, they've got some kind of nationally representative model. It's very hard to actually break out that nationally representative model and really understand, is it valid or not? We're very transparent about what we're doing. We're opening it up, and we're just shipping it as a standard set of weights. If anyone wants to use, these set of weights with the Inscape data, then they can do that. I would say equally, if someone wants something a little bit customized, we'll customize it for people. Some people take the Inscape data and they want to match it to their data sets before they do it. We can run exactly the same methodology against that subset of the Inscape data in order to be able to create weights for them. But it's in the same transparent, mathematically sound approach, which we know gives the right answers. Right. That can, hopefully give everyone in the industry confidence that these are reliable results which match well with known currencies.
So I think there's a little more. I mean, it's same themes, but when you walked me through what you do and how we do it, it struck me that there were a fair number of decisions being made about how to do it, and not everyone's going to take the same set of decisions the same way, right? So there will be variations in the implementations. I do think that the transparency enables the user of the data to actually understand what is taken care of and what maybe isn't taken care of. We're not proposing this is perfect, right? We're proposing that it's meaningfully better, right? And so I think that the transparency, it's more than just being honest. It's also, and I don't mean to suggest others are dishonest, by the way. There's people who maintain things in a black box for business reasons that don't have to do with honesty, but they do. It's more that it allows the research scientists at the partner companies to actually understand it and what's being done. And I think that's actually super important. I suspect we're probably giving this a bit more focus and product drive and feature drive than some others who have probably done it to check a box, as opposed to it's not really their core product. It's just something they think they need to have to make their product work. And we did just see some pretty interesting results over at SIM, showing a pretty wide variation in the outcomes of different people's data implementation. And that's not to suggest that any of those are wrong. It's to suggest that the methodology matters, and that that openness with regard to methodology matters. So I think these things they're all connected, right? We'll see how that goes on an ongoing basis, but I do think that we're doing something pretty cool now with the transparent approach.
And I would say if anyone listening to this is not already a member of SIM, they should definitely reach out to Jane Clark, join SIM, and get a copy of that attribution report. Because it absolutely makes the case more than anything else for the fact that we need consistency and we need transparency in terms of how we are weighting these census level data sets.
That's right. I think there's also a question in some people's minds as to sort of when this matters and when it doesn't. There's a lot of different data-driven applications now in media, right? What types of use cases out there really need this? When is it really advised to include some sort of representativeness metric, and when maybe do you not need it?
So I'd say you definitely need it in any kind of measurement use cases.
Right.
If you're doing retargeting, I think it's, who cares?
Right. That's right.
if you're trying to do any kind of attribution, you're trying to measure kind of any uplift of sales, then I think, you know, it's absolutely vital. You know, a lot of people are using, using supplementary currencies now. You know,
Right.
so, you know, generally speaking, we're planning and we're buying and we're selling based on Nielsen. But, you know, we might use another currency in order to be able to look at indexing. Yeah. For example, to be able to look at, you know, what's the best way to optimize this. Yeah, there are those kind of use cases. Again, I think anything like that, you've got to make sure it's nationally representative. Otherwise, the results are not going to be consistent.
You know, and actually, I mean, there are cases now where people are, buyer and seller are settling based on granular TV data and not Nielsen. That has started. It's still early, but there's definitely been some examples of that. So clearly, if you're going to use the Inscape data set, which says maybe, you know, 40% of the population was reached by a given campaign, in order to go back between buyer of ads and sellers, various of them of ads, and sort of say, all right, I reached 40%, or my portion of that was 4%. I want my coin. You certainly need to be able to project that out to the national reach of that particular advertiser and campaigns. How does a customer actually put the NRP to work? Let's maybe walk through a little bit of the math. I'm modeling out my campaign. How do I use it exactly?
That's really simple. So, you know, it's exactly the same way you deal with any kind of panel data that you get from Nielsen, like Emerald. Yeah, every single record for every TV you can match to a weight. For example, you've got a TV that's been watching 25 minutes of Young Sheldon. Yeah. What you will get in NRPs, you'll get a weight for that TV. Okay. We do the weights in two different kinds. So generally, the way we do it is so that the weights always add up to a stable number. Okay. We choose 120 million because that's about the number of TV homes in the country.
Right.
And so, you know, that we might say that individual TV is worth 30 homes. Yeah. So therefore, if that TV has watched 25 minutes of Young Sheldon, then what you do is you multiply that by 30. Yeah. And that's the overall contribution to national viewing of Young Sheldon. Okay. If you are looking at reach and you're saying, okay, you know, then you say that TV is worth 30 TVs watching Young Sheldon.
Got it. So, Tom, I think for just for the general public now, maybe just hit a few high points of how we actually make the panel. You know, what the data science is behind it, and the approach.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. So start by appending the Experian data to the TVs. Yeah, and we use that in order to get demos. There are about 200 different Experian attributes. We don't use all of them. You know, we only use ones of the most critical for TV measurement. So things like household income, age, education, ethnicity, those points. Yeah. And what we do is basically we create a big matrix where we work out how many people we should have in each cell. So, you know, how many people are there in New York City who have a postgraduate degree and are African American and earn more than $150,000 a year. So we work out how many TVs we've got in that category, and then we calculate the weight accordingly. Yeah. So that's the basic approach we do. It uses a bit of statistics called iterative proportional fitting. That's generally designed for running panels, which are, you know, 40,000 odd homes. You know, that's kind of what you normally deal with. Obviously, we've got much larger ones than that, so we had to create a little bit of new computer science in order to be able to run iterative proportional fitting at that scale, but it works pretty well. And we run that on a weekly basis. When someone's opted in for a market research panel, it's a special case under privacy regulation. They're in that panel. It is, you know, marked for all time. If you're opting in for smart TV data or set-top box data, if you opt out under CCPA, you opt out and you have to delete their data. Yeah?
Right.
So what that means is that, you know, if we're in, you know, March 2019 and we've got X million people in our panel and we create the weights on that basis, when in March 2020, we're not going to be able to use all of those X million people to calculate ratings in March. Yeah?
Right.
Because some of them will have opted out and have to delete their data because it's their data and that's their right, and people do opt out. So what we do is on a weekly basis, we have to go back and recalculate new weights for each TV for each week, yeah, to take into account any opt-outs that have happened in the previous week.
Right.
So there's a lot of complexity in it. I can see why customers want to not do it, and it's easier for them to outsource it. But we're happy to do it with I'd rather not have to do it 15 different times. So the more standardization we can have, I think the better easier it's going to be, and the better it's going to be for the industry.
Got it. So we've had a couple of customers ask us for custom solutions on the panel. Is that mostly changing the specific demographics that we're using for to calculate the fittings, or what sorts of customizations have customers asked us for?
The most common source of customization is when somebody isn't using all of the Inscape data on their side. So a classic example, they might have their own device graph, which has got an overlap with the Inscape data, say of 70%, yeah, and that means that they only want to be doing a nationally representative panel on that subset of the Inscape data set. So what we do is those that don't match, we would exclude from that, and we'd run exactly the same iterative proportional fitting over their universe and come up with weights that are nationally representative once you've done the joint of them.
Suppose I'm an agency and I've decided to build my new combined data set. Would we provide them with just the panel construction and management for that newly combined data set?
Yeah, absolutely.
Isn't that so? That to me is sort of a natural next step with this. Is we can take the techniques and the methodologies, very open, very transparent, and for customers that are licensing multiple data sets, need to bring a panel together, probably have privacy management, for example, on both sides, both pipes, right?
Exactly.
So we can set that whole thing up and manage it for them, and that's a little market that we sort of serve, I think, fairly uniquely.
So for me, there are clear operational efficiencies in panel as a service, because we can run it on a couple of data scientists, whereas most companies don't want to have a data scientist spend even half their time just doing this level of panel management.
Right.
There are clear things. I think there's great advantage to the industry of having this kind of transparency and consistency, and I think it'll go a long way to helping us go to this next generation of TV measurement. So Michael, until next time.
Until next time, I hope to have different coffee next time, Tom.